You know, he's really, he's shameless in intellectual argument. He's absolutely without character, a moral foundation, or even intellectual substance.
Welcome back to Getting Lit. Last episode, we talked about Ayn Rand's Anthem and Michael Bay's The Island. This episode, we are talking about Stephen King's short story 1408. And accompanying that, we will be talking about the Gordon Ramsay reality show series, Hotel Hell. Basically an excuse for me to talk about Hotel Hell, which it's a show that I'm kind of obsessed with, even though it's like long been cancelled. Joining me today is Matthew DeNicola. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you, Matthew.
Do you prefer Matthew, Matt?
I guess it depends on the
as your
context.
Twitter handle is. So.
Yeah, all of them are good. All of them are good. Yeah.
This is like a meeting of the Mateos in a way, although mine's sort of pronounced differently than yours usually is. So.
Yeah, when I was in Spanish class in middle school, they would call me Mateo. So.
Yeah, that's what my nonna called me.
Oh, that's cute. You're Italian, right?
Yeah, even though I wasn't that's not my real. My name is actually in English, but all the Italians just insist on doing the Italian version of the name.
That's true. Nonna.
Are you as well? DeNicola sounds Italian.
Yeah, I'm mostly European mutt, but I am part Italian, so I'll take pride, especially in the last name. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why I got you on is that this is another episode that has basically come about because I've mentioned something online and then someone has replied to it and be like, "Oh, you like that too? Come on the podcast." So yeah. I think I mentioned something about Hotel Hell and how much I sort of gag for it. And you did as well. So probably not as much as me, but at least you've seen it. So that's why I got you to come on. But I also I wanted you to come on as well because your podcast is really good. It's called The Salt Box. And it's got a very different vibe to a lot of the other ones that I've listened to, where I always feel it's very wholesome and cozy. Especially the last episode you did. I think it was the last episode you did on John Mayer with Vera.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was such a great episode. And it made me kind of had such a newfound appreciation for John Mayer, who I've always kind of liked. But it just took me back to the mid 2000s when I was running around delivering pizzas and listening to John Mayer on the radio and stuff.
Oh my God, when Uber and DoorDash was not a thing and you actually had a dedicated pizza delivery car, for each business. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I remember that and it was actually a job rather than just a gig,
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, that was a real thorough deep dive into John Mayer, who I don't care what anyone says. He's cool. I like him.
I love him. Fellow nutmegger from Connecticut as well.
What's a nutmegger?
That's we're the nutmeg state, apparently. So I've termed that, and it almost has I guess used in the wrong context could have a derogatory sort of sound to it.
It does sound like a fetish thing.
But
he's into nutmegging,
Exactly. But yeah, thank you. I'm glad you like the show.
Yeah, and I love the talks you had with Eric as well, formerly Gold Pony. Those are really great, sort of thorough discussions on art, but artistic practice as well, which I found really fascinating. So I love that guy too. He's been on my show as well.
Yeah, Eric's great. I definitely feel like everyone who I get on the show, I already have a pretty close, relationship with, we could connect on a deeper level and have that sort of more, conversation that isn't just, strictly about the topic at hand. And I'm a photographer, so I definitely, all those sort of things I like to connect on with other people about, because we're all just trying to figure this thing out together,
I was going to mention that too, actually. Yeah, you are a photographer and you do a bit of music as well. Why so many things, Matthew?
It's
I
a good
could ask
question.
this of myself too, but yeah.
Yeah. You're a good interviewer, by the way. I like your questions. But I think I'm a little at times, I hate to be like, jack of all trades, master of none. I definitely think my, primary focus or strength would probably be photography, but I'm able to I feel like I have the mind to, know how to learn a skill and develop that quickly. So I just have a lot of different topics that really interest me. And of course, at the end of the day, you might have to pick the thing that you just have to go long on and really make that your sole focus. I mean, my thing nowadays is man, I really wish I had more time in the day just to really sharpen all of the knives in the set, because I just have it's all art to me at the end. It's all creativity at the end of the day. And they share a lot of different principles about I think about options, combinations, problem solving. Now it sounds mathematical, but all these things in terms of just expressing and pushing, a medium to its limits. That's pretty much my, and I went to school for photography. That was, my main thing. And my brother is a serious, jazz musician. And I've always played the drums. So we came together and we'll make music together as well. And, so I have a little bit of a competitive thing as well, where I just want to hop in any medium and just kind of show up everyone, be like, yeah, I could do this better than you can,
Yeah, I feel I have a similar thing going on where my primary thing is writing, but I've also do podcasting and I've done music before as well. I think it's a star sign thing, so I think it's a Gemini thing for me. What's yours?
Okay, I'm a Libra.
A Libra. Okay, interesting.
Can you give me any more knowledge on this?
I don't know anything about Libras.
Yeah, all I know about Libras is they have a thing about balance. So maybe that's it, or maybe I'm just totally making it up. So
yeah, maybe you're trying to balance all of these different art forms that you think are on some kind of wavelength that you can kind of unite them. Maybe.
Absolutely, it's like one gay pride rainbow of artistic mediums.
Yeah, and I would say as well that your photography is amazing. I love its there's a certain rawness to it, but it doesn't look messy. You know how sometimes that it can, when someone's trying to get at a specific. I'm really bad at talking about photography.
No, you're doing good. Yeah.
Someone's trying to get at a specific feeling or vibe or something, and they're trying to do it in a really authentic way, and then it just looks a little bit like abject or something. But yours manages to look really nice while it's doing that.
No, that's a great reading. I mean, my philosophy usually is I am trying to use the camera to cut through all the noise to get at the essence of, maybe I'm photographing someone, the realness to them. And, I really try to avoid photographic gimmicks that are really distracting. And so
what is a photographic gimmick?
I don't know. I don't really I'm not really into special effects. I think, certain photographic effects can be used with intent to relay a message. Maybe you use a slow shutter speed to relay the passage of time, or really fast to capture a moment, or maybe it's lit in a certain way, or maybe use a hazy filter that makes it look nostalgic, which I just think is utter, most of the time people are just hiding, they're because I think not to go too much of a tangent, but
no, please do.
I think the camera, right, you can use it to maybe, I have a certain directness I want from the camera. Other people, right, maybe shooting black and white, you want to transform or transmute like your surroundings into something other. And like, because not everything has to be reality. That's like my philosophy. It doesn't have to apply to everyone, but that's usually what I'm looking for. Some people are looking to escape reality through photography, and they could create like another world. But to me, sometimes it's just like way too gimmicky when it's like you have reality then filtered through this certain like maybe hazy lens, or people use film and they rely on like the colors that film produces, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, I don't know. It's just like, I don't want to be pulled by the device I'm using. I want to push the device forward, like, so some people rely too much, in my opinion, on those sorts of tools.
Yeah, like that, because that was an early kind of sort of not critique, but a thing that people like said was great about photography, that it was just like mechanistic in a way, that you'll always get the same thing in a way that's opposite to painting or something. Like a different painter is going to paint something kind of different. But then I'm like, is that really true? Like the mechanism is the same, but there are so many different things you can do in and around the use of the mechanism too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
do you have this thing with photography? Again, I'm going on a tangent now as well. Like I did an episode.
I like tangents.
Yeah, me too. I did an episode about the work of Chris Marker. I don't know if you've seen any of his photographic montage films.
No, I'm not familiar.
Yeah. So he wrote, have you heard of 12 Monkeys, the movie?
I think so.
Brad Pitt and Bruce Willis. Anyway, it's like it's sort of based on this kind of photographic montage film he made, which is basically just a series of still photographies that he kind of narrates over. And it's like a science fiction story of a man who sort of goes back in time to try and, save the world from a pandemic or whatever. So yeah. And I was speaking about, I had this other book that I was reading called Camera Lucida. I don't know if you read that, but
the Roland Barthes one.
Yeah. And how he's got this very morbid thing around photography being about like it always reminds him of death.
It's very it almost felt Stephen King to me,
So do you have that? Are you reminded of death every time you see a photograph of yourself or someone else or whatever?
Certainly the passage of time is like, always prescient when you're making an image, because it's just like you're able to, flatten, the world as we know it, and then put it into, silver halides or digital pixels or whatever. And okay, now I'm thinking of the picture of Dorian Gray, which I just read recently.
Excellent novel. Such a great novel.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think I have a huge thing about photography and like the distance of time. Like I try not to, delete photos that I think are, quote unquote bad. Because like if I put it on my computer and I come back to it in like a year, I might feel completely differently about the image, like editing. The editing process is a huge part of photography, not just editing, not meaning, color manipulation or anything, but editing meaning like selecting images and, I guess curating them in a way. But, I certainly like look at images, of my family members from, maybe like 5 years ago and just think about how we've changed. And it is morbid in a way, it's like, that we can't go backwards in that way. It's like, it's very scary, but, it's also, it's very emotional to me to like look at old pictures. But because I think in the end, in the back of my mind, you're like, yep, this isn't forever.
It's an interesting tension though, because I think the best photographers, and I think part of the reason why I enjoy your stuff as well, is because, they are these flat objects that are this, remnants of a time that, you're never going to get back. And on some level, subconsciously or whatever, we acknowledge that. But the trick, I think, of a good photographer, whether that's through, I don't know, I'm not into gimmicks either, but however they do it, is to trick you that that's not a dead flat object, that there's life in it. That's what appeals to me about it anyway.
No, absolutely. That, like, not that every image is doing this per se, but that the point of the image is, I guess, moving with the current of time, and its meaning might change over time as well. Or speak to something maybe not just about that person, but maybe a broader, like, humanistic sort of theme,
Yes, definitely. And in terms of the passage of time, I think that is a wonderful segue to get into the short story by Stephen King, 1408, which the main character walks into a dilapidated, scuzzy old sort of hotel room. So all right, this is my assigned reading for this episode. What's that?
I said class. Did you do your reading?
Did you do your reading?
Yeah.
So have you had any exposure to any of Stephen King's work prior to this?
No, I hadn't. My girlfriend, I think, read it or attempted to read it. I don't honestly know much about Stephen King, and I haven't really been much of a reader until recently, because I discovered why I didn't like reading is because I was trying to make myself read nonfiction. And nowadays I've decided it's like, I only want to read stories. That's way more exciting to me. And I learn more about, the human condition from that than like just dense, boring information. But this is basically my first exposure to Stephen King, and this was a part of that larger collection of short stories, so I'm sure that's worth a read as well.
My first book of his that I read was Carrie, and that kind of blew my mind, mostly because it was like super pulpy, super scary, super abject, but also like structurally really interesting. Like, I just thought I was just reading a kind of like pulp horror novel, but he does really interesting things that I hadn't like been exposed to before, such as like, newspaper articles and stuff like that were incorporated into the narrative. So I really loved Carrie. And then I read like a whole heap of other shit that he wrote. Got really into the Dark Tower series, which I think is still ongoing. I've left it behind like 5 books ago because it's just too, it's just too all encompassing. Maybe I'll return to it one day. But I also really responded to his On Writing book. It was really formative for me in the sense that it got me over this hurdle of being precious about writing, because like he has this thing where it's like, just do it, which just sounds like just obvious kind of advice that people already know. But like just reading that from a professional writer was like, it got me to this point where like, okay, every day I'm going to do my words, whereas before I treated it as this sort of precious,
sacred thing.
Sacred thing that
that happens with all mediums too, though.
Yes. Yeah. What was yours? Did you have a moment like that?
Not necessarily, but like I've certainly related to, that fear of like going in and it not being perfect right off the bat. And, but I remember hearing maybe a writer from a TV show just talk about, maybe try sometimes when you're writing, writing the worst thing possible, just to like get you started. And then eventually you're going to stumble upon like, what you're trying to avoid and stumble upon something good.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a little bit about creative process. People say is like a muscle or it's like a workout, and you got to get your reps in. Some of that language doesn't really hit to me. I think it's more like you need to like indulge in you know what I mean? Like you should be enjoying the process, that it's almost like addictive. Like, yes, I I mean, if you work out enough, you're like, yeah, I want to get back in the gym. But for keeping it in the frame, for me personally, of like, this is work is not helpful at all. But maybe it's just the same thing phrased in different ways,
Oh, I think you're so much more productive if you have a day job. Like,
oh yeah, when you're limited on time.
People don't want to hear it, but like when you don't have a day job, where you don't have like something that is occupying the maximum amount of, well, not maximum amount, like a good chunk of your time, what you end up doing is like, instead of actually doing your art or whatever, you faff about and maybe like sort of do bits and pieces of your art, but it's never like a sustained focused thing that you should be doing, like. So I find as well, and I've spoken to lots of writer friends, and it might be the same with other artists as well, that 3 hours a day, like more than that, is just like, it's just not worth doing any more than that, because once you hit that limit of 3 hours, you kind of got nothing left in the tank, and you're not really feeling it, because it is exhausting doing it, even though you love it. So I just feel like, well, what are you going to do for the rest of the day? If they like, so that's why I feel like having a job, having that stability, and not having to worry about hustling with your art is like really kind of liberatory, because it's just like you can just do whatever the fuck you want, and there's not really that much riding on it,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there have been so many days where I'm looking forward to the weekend because I'm finally gonna have free time. Then the free time comes around and I sit down and I'm doing nothing,
Yes. But doing nothing is important too, as well. Like,
no, but it's not even like, and I've actually been trying to, and I have, been getting out of this mindset, is that I had felt a lot of guilt and attachment to my identity, like as a photographer. And I'd always, on days where I should, just be enjoying myself, I'd be sitting on the couch, watching Hotel Hell per se. And then in the back of my mind thinking, hey, why aren't you doing work right now? And then I'd go and sit at the computer thinking I'm doing work, and I'm really just procrastinating because I don't want to like deal with it, So certainly when you have this time limitation, I'm like, okay, like let's rock and roll and be as efficient as possible, because I got to go back to work for 8 hours,
Yeah, that I'm actually recording this on a break during work.
Exactly. It's also exhilarating, just it making for me, I'm a 9-to-5er, so on the weeknights when I actually do something, it brightens up my fucking work week.
Yeah. It kind of gives something of a reprieve from the monotony.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, 1408, I think I probably first encountered this in On Writing, because he actually added it to an appendix where he was sort of showing his working, how something gets from an idea draft stage into something more polished. So, and then he went on to publish it in his collection. It was published in an audiobook collection called Blood and Smoke, as well as a hardcover collection called Everything's Eventual. And it was, of course, made into a movie, 2007 movie starring John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson of the same name. So in terms of what happens, it's very much plot-based. So lots of plot happens in it. But the way I would sum it up would be that we have this Mike Enslin, who's a writer of those sort of non-fiction pulpy works that basically talk about, haunted houses and hotels and stuff around America, haunted spaces, I guess. And he's sort of like a bestseller. And then he kind of finds out about this hotel, the Dolphin, and a room there in New York City. And so he goes, and most of the story is actually the hotel's manager, whose name is Olin, discouraging him from going into the room. So like, it's actually quite funny at the start, because I think anyway, like, because it's got this like, kind of narrative of like, oh, you don't want to go up there, you better not go up there, like, so, and of course he's going to go up there, right? Like, so because he's like this uber skeptic, and then he enters the room, and the room is indeed something weird is going on, and the story is sort of told from his tape recordings and what he's doing around that, and he eventually gets out, but we'll go into more of the plot. But Yeah. Did you find that as well in terms of the start of it? How it's just like this long, almost comedic sketch. Like,
yeah, of course. I mean, it's almost like a little cliched in a way, you know, it's just like really discouraging him, but he has this like legal precedent that, you know, legally, you know, you can't refuse me from, you know, trying to use this room. And then is, you know, exclaiming that, you know, I don't know, however many 31 people have like committed suicide in this room. And I guess, you know, I'm just thinking of the, you know, the word imagery of, you know, Olin having his pudgy hands, you know, and usually he's like a pretty, kind of mealy-mouthed or deferential guy, but in this instance, you know, he's like rock solid, trying to really convince, Michael that, you know, this is a bad decision.
And yeah, so it's on the 13th floor, even though it's called the 14th floor, and the number of the room is 1408, which of course adds up to 13. Yeah, sorry.
I love that line. No, I love that line where he says, you know, because it is interesting to think about how, you know, in a way, yes, we're all skeptics of, I mean, I'm just thinking about today's society. We're not a religious society. And so we're like atheistic skeptics, but there's still superstition just baked into design. Like, yeah, hotels don't have a 13th floor. Don't you know that the 14th floor is actually the 13th floor? You know, 1408, 1 plus 4 plus 5, whatever. 1 plus 4 plus 8 equals 13.
Yeah. Do they still do that in buildings? I'm not sure. Like,
I mean, I haven't been to a hotel because, you know, everything is Airbnb culture now, but
I thought it was like all buildings, not just hotels.
No, I think it is all buildings. I mean, the last apartment that had, you know, more than 13 floors didn't have a 13.
Interesting. I love that's a superstition that's just baked in.
Yeah.
Like, it's really funny. It's really funny, the details at the start as well, how he says, oh yeah, we do have housekeepers who go in there and straighten up now and again, but they're really quick. They're in and out because, like, if they spend any more than like 5 minutes or something, they'll be killed or kill themselves. But he ends up spending 70 minutes in it, and like he's sort of just dictating his experience into his tape recorder. And yeah, he starts like experiencing a whole heap of weird shit. Like I found the breakfast menu really kind of disturbing, like how it's
Changes
really
languages.
Yeah, it's a really simple kind of motif, but like really lovely. So it starts out in French, turns into Russian, turns into Italian, then back to English. And that's the first sort of visual hint that, you know, something's not quite right, or at least very kind of stark visual hint.
Yeah, I think he has. Well, first he has that whole confusion about the pictures. Well, the door frame.
Yes,
the door frame being off center, and then his eyes are deceiving them, and he goes in, and the picture frames are crooked. I'm getting the chills thinking about that. It's very, I guess, because it's not overtly horrifying. It's like very subtly creepy, you know. And you just think of those things in life, you know, we're always relying on, humans have great pattern recognition abilities and perception. And it's like to second guess yourself like that. And then what is the only logical conclusion? I mean, maybe it was the gravity, maybe something happened, but, you know, he has this underlying feeling like of this supernatural force taking over.
Yeah. And, the hotel as well, like I liked the idea that it gave you this sense from the beginning that it was haunted, but it's like seems so much more than haunting, because like there's all these kind of psychedelic abject images that kind of flood into his brain, and he's talking about them. And then there's the weird thing in the room's phone, which is really freaky and kind of, I don't know, I couldn't really decipher if that had any meaning other than this is just random scariness.
Yeah.
where it's like, this is 9, we have killed your friends. Like it's like it's talking through the dial tone and stuff. So making the mundane kind of defamiliarizing and that making it kind of horrific, which I feel like is getting at a very primal emotion that you can have when you stay in a really shitty motel or just in a really shitty kind of space in general. The twist of this short story is that it's not necessarily haunted, so to speak, because at the kind of end of the story, Anslin basically gets out of his situation by, is it like activating the fire alarms by kind of setting himself on fire or something? I think that's how he does it.
Yeah, that's what I remember. He has those like book of matches and he catches on fire and somehow runs through the door and the guy down the hallway saves him.
Yeah, and catches on fire, like, and there's, I think it's like his pocket. They're in his pocket or something like that. Isn't it? And it, like he gives that really good image about like how he's got this like square white patch on his chest hair because it's like burnt into his skin. And so he's going to carry that for the rest of his days and stuff. Like, and then he makes this thing where he's kind of exchanges a message about like, and he kind of makes this point that like that place wasn't haunted because, you know, ghosts used to be people. And like he finds out this really disturbing experience was not like ghost, it was something else. And the fact
it was a third thing.
Yeah. And the fact that that's not explained is like really creepy as well. Or what is it? I'm just like, you know, gateway to hell or whatever it is like, but the fact that it's mysterious makes it, you know, so much more creepy.
Yeah, I think because like people make up the own images in their head. And also for humans, it's like the fear of the unknown is it's like way scarier than anything that actually exists. So, you know, just leaving it up to that interpretation. I mean, how I think it's just like this room, almost like the room is a physicality, like is eating up and spitting this guy out. Before we get to Hotel Hell, I just think of the last imagery that really stuck out was like the paintings themselves that he described. Like the initial ones was like a woman with her breasts out and they start bleeding. And then another one was like, what was it? Like a staircase. Or maybe she's on the staircase. The other one I remember was like the painted plums or fruits. Oh yeah, and the novel ends with, or the story ends with this room is like coated with this orange sunset light, you know, that it's emitting, and that light is sort of emanating. And I think he's out in the real world, and oh my God, I'm getting the chills, but after he survives this encounter, you know, he has to live the rest of his life where he draws the blinds.
Yeah, that's
during the day. Yeah, the daylight, because, you know, once he sees that golden hue, it's like reminds him of the horror. That's scary.
Are you always this pathetic?
I am not pathetic.
Well, when are you going to stand up and start showing some respect for your team and start growing a pair to sort of understand the mess you're in?
I understand the mess we're in.
Right.
I'm fighting for the team.
You dug the fucking hole.
Yes, we
and
did.
Put them in it. So they're fucked.
They don't have to work here.
Oh, my God.
I mean, you know, the bottom line is...
Oh, how dare you?
No, they don't have to work here.
How dare you? How fucking dare you? They don't have to work here. Oh, my God.
I
You disrespectful, disgusting man. They don't have to work here. I don't think you realise how fucking lucky you are.
All right, shall we talk about Hotel Hell?
Yeah, let's do it.
Because that's what I really want to do.
Yeah, fuck this stupid short story. Just kidding.
Okay, so Hotel Hell is one of Gordon Ramsay's forays into America after he did Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, which was like a British show where he sort of went around. And if you don't know who Gordon Ramsay is, he's a sort of like celebrity chef. But yeah, Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, he goes around and helps struggling kitchens, right? That are just serving really bad food. People they're not getting the punters in to come and eat So he just helps businesses and like revamps the menu, does sort of like a makeover of the interiors and things like that. And that's a really good show too. And maybe I'll do another episode on that. But to me, Hotel Hell is like the final form of that sort of show because it basically takes what's really fun and great about Kitchen Nightmares, which is Gordon Ramsay, who is a personality who likes yelling and swearing at people, like every fucking chef in existence. It takes the kitchen stuff because the food element is still there. And then it adds on this element of the hotel. So like the rooms, the amenities, the aesthetic, the vibe of the hotel. So it kind of brings in Gordon Ramsay to do what he did in Kitchen Nightmares in Hotel Hell, where he like helps a struggling inn or motel or whatever to upgrade their menu, their food service, and their overall kind of like accommodation sort of services and amenities and things like that. And it is just so enjoyable as a makeover show, but I really am in awe about these producers who found so many interesting characters as well. In terms of like the season, it only ran for 3 seasons, and those seasons were sort of, the first one was 2012, the second was in 2014, and the third and final season was in 2016. But across all of those, there are so many great sort of stories, quirky characters. And it makes me think that anyone who does run an inn must be like a weird person, because that's what this show suggests anyway.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you gotta be pretty insane. Like on Kitchen Nightmares, anyone who's running a restaurant, like it just sounds like torture, Yeah,
it makes you insane.
Yeah, no,
it's like the 1408 room.
Oh yeah, totally. Because like, imagine people are very sensitive when they're hungry, and like that toppled like one. You have to execute hopefully at a moderately high level, like consistently, and then it's real face-to-face customer service with like some of the lowest rung of humanity, really. when you're in a restaurant. So, I mean, for this show, like, because Gordon Ramsay is a chef and he did Kitchen Nightmares, the kitchen is always like, it's like the heart of the ship of the hotel. It's like you can maybe tell how good a hotel is by like how well its kitchen is ran.
Yeah, and from a kind of economic point of view as well, that's something the show rams home, is that like, if you have like the hotel as a destination to eat, you don't have to rely so much on guests coming in, because there'll always be off seasons and stuff like that where you'll have fewer tourists coming into the town and shit like that. So, but like it is really interesting how, I guess because the seasons were made 2 years apart each. So, one started in 2012, like I said, and so on and so forth. Each season has like a different vibe, which I find really interesting, which we'll talk about. But the first season, there are actually so many great episodes in the first season, and the 2-parter opener is like the best. Like it is like, it kind of gives you like a preview of like how glorious this show is going to be, because it has so much. First of all, the first episode ends on a cliffhanger, and then you get a 2-parter, and the 2-parters in this show are always amazing. But this one was based at the Juniper Hill Inn, which was in Vermont, I think. And so it's like a historical hotel. It was giving me, even though it wasn't up on a hill, it was giving me The Shining vibes.
Totally, I could see that. Yeah,
but it's run by these 2 gay guys, and 2 like, who wish to one of the gay guys wishes to be seen as a sort of posh man about town. And I always laugh when his name comes up on the screen, because his name is Robert Dean the second.
And
So it gives away what his character is already, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he's really pompous and really I mean, not to say like, well, yeah, I mean, a fuck up to a degree. But it's just like he has this level of arrogance, and he's like an aesthete of sorts. Like, you know, he takes pride in collecting art and antiques and whatever. I mean, he's totally horribly dressed and looks horrible. So, I don't know how much he's really into beauty, more than it's just like kind of hoarding of sorts, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's really dug his heels in, and it goes further and further into debt.
It's that kind of posh aesthete, because one thing that people, I think, need to remember is that posh people actually have really bad taste. Like if you go to maybe, and I'm making a class thing here. Like if you think about posh people, especially in England, and I would assume it's very similar in like New England and places like that, in the northeast of the US, where like it is about like a heap of old crap. Like it's like old vases and shit like that. Taxidermied animals, like just old crap. And
just garbage. Yeah, just garbage.
Yeah. And old crap can be fine, but like it's just strewn all about the place. And also none of these people in their like manor houses and things like that ever clean. Like there's always cobwebs everywhere and dust, and that's the way they like it, because that is the posh aesthetic. So people really need to be disabused of this idea that posh people have taste, because they don't. They're just rich.
Yeah, you know, I found on the show a lot is like, not to jump too far ahead, but certainly most of the hotels have this sort of antique charm to it, you know, of a different time. But like I would love that, but it's not upkept, and that's why it's so disgusting. And then, you know, the funny part of the show is because, it's like 2014. And like Gordon Ramsay will do these totally like neoliberal gray box looking makeovers.
I wanted
it's
to
like,
talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, what's worse? I mean, I think the sort of renovations that he does, to me, it just speaks of, I think people are just looking for security and cleanliness. So when you give them simplicity, I think it sets up for systems, for the caretakers of the place, right? It's a much easier system to maintain.
Yeah,
and
well, you don't have
that,
to. Yeah, you don't have to move that giant Ming vase when you're trying to sweep the floor or something like that.
Absolutely, but that definitely comes at the sacrifice of like, you know, unique or eclectic character or taste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the first episode basically sets up the format of the show, and the format of the show never changes. And this is what's great about it as well. What changes between episodes is like the quirky characters and Gordon Ramsay's like kind of response to them. Like sometimes he is just so utterly disgusted by people's behavior and like the cleanliness of the hotel. It's great. But he'll show up, and then usually what he'll do is he'll try the food first, then go up to his room. And you know, he'll look around the room. He'll usually find dead insects everywhere, dust everywhere. And he'll complain about the food if it's bad, and usually it is. But what I love as well, a part of like the format that is like in almost every fucking episode, is that he'll get his kid off like at the drop of a hat. Like he's always getting naked. And like, and like being filmed jumping in the shower and stuff. You always see his butt. Like
it's always seeing his gigantic ass. Yes.
Yeah, he does have a nice ass. So like, you know, good for you, Gordon. But like,
maybe he's trying to get, you know, push the edge a little more than, because Kitchen Nightmares, I find at the end of the day is a pretty wholesome show. You know, like most of the time, like, oh, you know, the owner of the restaurant is pretty stubborn, but they come around, and you know, he gave them a renovation, and you know, business is looking up. But I think this is just like, it's way more of a bigger problem, Anyway, this is just to my point of maybe he's showing ass just to provoke a little and get some more viewership.
Maybe, but that's I like that you brought up that Kitchen Nightmares is more wholesome, because this show has moments of wholesomeness, but it is so like it is so abject in a lot of the times, because not only is a lot of the food that they film really hideous, but like the rooms themselves are really gross. And if they're not really gross, what they'll do in the show as well is he'll get the black light out, which is like
he's obsessed with that black light.
And it's so good. Like there's actually a funny meme around all the people who love Gordon Ramsay and this show in particular. And it's just like a really short clip of him with the black light. I can't even remember what episode this is in, but he's shining it on all the cum stains and stuff on the bedspread. And all it is his one quote, which is like, he's like, "It's a mosaic of semen." And people just like share that constantly.
Yeah, he's hitting on the semen, the blood stains, the sweat stains. Yeah. I mean, it's fucking gross. I mean, don't get me wrong, but
so in this episode he has the two uppity gays who are just filling this beautiful old hotel with old junk, essentially. And it is funny as well that like this guy acts like he's some connoisseur and like this is a multi-million-dollar collection or something. And then like the price, how much did it end up like being worth? Like $100,000 or something at most. Like it was not very much. I think it was even less than that.
When he hoarded all of these antiques and that he'd been talking up. It's okay that he's going into debt because I'm really sitting on a gold mine of value, things that are increasing in value. Yeah, right.
But the most outrageous thing about this episode is like that they are so far in debt that they can't even pay their staff. That's horrible. It's so bad.
And these people are like they were holding out. I mean, I guess because they have no option, but at a certain point you go, you guys have no dignity to like quit and try to find another job. Like, they've been waiting. Some people have missed a check for like 3 weeks. And meanwhile, not that they're living, the owners are living a lavish lifestyle. And it's like, they're not giving the crumbs to employees. It's just like, they're totally mismanaging the money and spending it on garbage.
And because they're so obsessed with being like society people, they have friends who come and eat at their restaurant and stuff and like don't make them pay. Like they give it all to them gratis, so they've like lost all this money trying to be like society people, which is really funny as well. But and then Gordon like fucking goes off on him because he's not paying his staff, which is really really funny and very cathartic if you've ever worked in a service job. Someone like berating a really shitty boss. But that kind of sets the tone, and eventually everything kind of they renovate it, like you said. I can't remember if this renovation was the grey neoliberal box, but like probably was.
No, this one I remember just being a slight sort of upgrade.
Yeah.
But I mean, others have just. I mean, I guess we'll get to, but others have just like, they're like, wow, it looks so great. It literally, it looks like I walked into like a staging room in Home Goods or something,
Yeah. That's my one complaint about this show as well. But then I guess you got to think of it, like you were saying before, as to like what era this was made in. And that was the height of that aesthetic. That aesthetic is still with us now, obviously, but like that was when that was like really on trend, gray fucking shiplap and shit like that.
Yeah. The linoleum gray paneled flooring.
Yes, the fake wooden flooring. Yeah,
that's heinous to me.
Yeah, it's so bad. But you can go on a site actually as well, like it's a fan site that basically tells you what's been happening since the show and like with the hotel. And
Yeah, I've been on that one. It always like confirms, deny, are they in business or not?
yeah. And usually they're not. Like, and so this one, the hotel went into foreclosure with debts of $1.4 million. And it was sold to like new owners.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time, like, I mean, what I've learned from the show is that people just can't help themselves sometimes. So like you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And, Gordon, it seems to me, he is a genuinely warm person who cares. Maybe you could, might chalk that up to, he's picking on an act or whatever. But it seems like he genuinely does care. But it's almost like just reminds me of problems of the bureaucracy. It's like, let's throw money at the problem and see if it fixes it. And it's like, no, at the end of the day, individuals who own the businesses and its staff have to be motivated to, upkeep and keep this, up and running. Because, so many of them have gotten, beautiful makeovers, and then boom, the next year they're closed.
Yeah. And that's part of what I think is really appealing about the show as well, is that there's something about like having so much potential, and they've chosen all of the, hotels really well too, because it's like all of these look like such would be great places to stay at if they weren't so like dirty or mismanaged or whatever. But so yeah, the choice of the spaces is really good in this show. In terms of season 1, was there a episode that you liked, a favorite in that one?
I guess the most memorable one is the like car Ferrari hotel or whatever Porsche, because I'm thinking about the chef who like faints halfway through dinner service. Yeah. And then the owner of the hotel is trying to blame Gordon, like, you put all this stress on us, and he's pushed to his limit, man. It's like, dude, get a grip, man. Like,
you applied for the show, mate. Like,
yeah, of course. I mean, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, so this guy's a property developer, and he's obsessed with Ferraris. And basically the hotel looks like a car dealership, basically, the way that it's been kitted out and everything. And I was saying before we recorded that it actually reminds me of that. There's an episode of The Simpsons where Milhouse's father divorces, or is going through a divorce with his mother, and he's living in this like singles big building unit, and he's sleeping in one of those kids like car beds, and Homer visits him and he's like, hey, I sleep in a car, where do you sleep? And Homer's like, in a big bed with my wife. Like, so there's a real kind of man-child element to this guy as well, which I find very hilarious.
Yeah, I just think about like, a huge problem about this particular hotel was just its design.
Mm-hmm.
I think someone in the episode says, he totally prioritizes form over function.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess this just kind of reminds me of other parts, other hotels, but just thinking about like user experience,
mm-hmm.
like, yeah, he had this grand idea, which was really his pet project that he dumped a whole bunch of money in. That
mm-hmm.
He had a car obsession, and this guy has no taste whatsoever either. It's really like gaudy, but it's not even like in an opulent way. What am I trying to get at? It's like luxury car design. Like if you try to transform that on a larger scale, it fails. Like luxury cars, they have their design for their function for transportation, but he like applied the very surface level understanding of the aesthetics of that and try to like bring it into a hotel room. Okay, yeah, let's have like a paved concrete like we're standing in a fucking garage. Who wants to be in there, you know?
Oh yeah,
it's so childish. And yeah,
get a custom made rug that looks like an oil stain. Like you could do it.
It's like embarrassing to me, you know. I mean, I'm just thinking about other things like for design, in my opinion, should have a lot to do with its functionality. So like it's hard to stretch things in that way. Like I would, you know, I think people who like a Marvel movie and they try to like merchandise their room like that. Like to me, that's just sort of embarrassing. That was what he was sort of doing.
Oh my God, if Hotel Hell was made today, maybe they would find like a Funko Pop, like hotel themed hotel or something. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
But the other thing that's funny about this hotel too, this is the Keating Hotel episode. I think it's episode 4. The other fun thing about this hotel is located in the gas lamp quarter of San Diego. So like you've got like, you know, this whole 19th century gas lamp, you know, kind of colonial Spanish kind of feel to the entire area. And then there's this random car themed hotel. Like it doesn't even make sense in the geographic space. Like it's so strange.
Complete eyesore. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so the first season, like there are lots of great little kind of moments in that. But yeah, I would agree that one's really fun, and the first sort of 2-parter is really fun as well. There's also another one in the final episode of that season, actually, with the guy who does the Sherlock Holmes like parties.
Oh,
like
yeah,
mystery parties and stuff.
Yeah, it was like Clue.
Yeah, that one was so cringe. Like, I try not to use cringe too much these days, but like it was so.
Oh my God, dude! This one, I'm just glancing over it now. It's like husband and wife, and I mean the husband is just totally deluded in like a fairy tale.
Out to lunch.
Yeah, totally. And the wife is being like dragged along, and she looks mortified at, you know, what everything spiraled into. And, you know, I mean, then they're all these people are ransacked with debt, and it just seems like hopeless for them, you know?
I do not understand this mentality either. That like, I feel like a lot of these people just got an idea into their head and didn't think any further about it. It's just like, I'm going to be an innkeeper. Oh, it's going to be themed around Ferraris. And like, I feel like none of these people came up with a business plan. They just had heaps of money, threw it at it, and now they're like in millions of dollars debt. And that's what happened.
Yep.
It's not like something went wrong, like, oh, the economy tanked, so we didn't get that many guests in. It feels like all of their own making. That it's just like that you had this brain fart, didn't think it through, and now you've fucked yourself over. That's what it seems to me. Maybe I'm being uncharitable.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I forgot which episode I was watching, but, you know, people were like, some guy asked his like youngest child who was in like a senior and who was like in undergrad college, probably no older than 18, you know, to borrow like $10,000.
I remember that. That is so
that's so
pathetic.
low. That's disgusting. I mean, also, you know, like, I mean, I guess I get like, you know, a lot of these people, right? Like you were saying, it's like, they didn't have any game plan. They didn't have any training. It's usually like their first idea. Because, you know, people have this like really kind of superficial or childish, you know, get rich quick type of thing where they're like, oh, I'm going to make passive income by renting out rooms, you know? Yeah, maybe that works if you have like a duplex with like one tenant. But if you're a hotel manager, I mean, you're in for a trip, man. Because like, and I just don't understand how they let it sink so low. Like some couples like $1 or $2 million in debt. I'm like, did you guys not like? have we not gotten creative? Like, they're surprised when he's like, yes, you guys shouldn't be cooking fucking frozen food. They're like, whoa, I've never thought about this before.
Oh, that's something speaking of the food, that's something we'll get to later though, but I just want to flag that here. The cooking staff, like, acting like they are completely powerless in, like, because it's basically like they're just as lazy as the owners, but like they put it back on the owners because, you know, it is true that ultimately everything that happens is the owners and the managers' fault, but it's also like the chefs are always trying to like get in Gordon's good graces by pretending
they're victims.
Like,
they're totally victims.
So moving on to season 2, and the premiere of season 2 is like, this is one of my top episodes without a doubt, because it's the Cher woman. Like, you know that episode? She's singing Cher constantly.
Oh yeah, she has a dream of being like the bar cabaret star or whatever.
So this is a woman who used to sing when she was a bit younger, and now she's sort of middle-aged and is running the hotel and uses the hotel like as her private sort of like gig space, essentially, where she goes and sings literally in the dining room. Where there's like a really little dingy setup there with basically a mic, and she has playback that she plays, and she plays Turn Back Time by Cher. And one of the most uncanny, ridiculous things about this scene is how she's only ever singing like a couple of lines from the chorus, because clearly that's due to copyright reasons. And like, so Gordon's sitting there eating lunch and she's like singing Cher, but doing Cher as well. It's like an impression. Like, she's like, if I could turn back time, and and she's clearly deluded, like that, you know, is she a hotel person or is she a singer or whatever? So she's clearly using this space to kind of try to, I don't know, make something happen, or at least she says, oh, I like to do it, and the people like to come and see me. And I'm like, okay.
No, they don't. They don't.
And so this one was so weird as well, because it was like Hacienda vibes out the front, because I think it's in New Mexico. But then inside it's like decorated like it's in Tuscany.
Oh yeah.
Like, there are photos of like the Italian countryside, and the menu is Italian as well. It's just so random. And she's got like this little like blonde bob, and she's always wearing like this little canary yellow jacket. So she's like a weird character too, like floating through this like Tuscan space inside of like a Mexican looking building with an attached pool that is not used by any of the guests because it's dirty and disgusting. So yeah, that one was a highlight for me, mostly because of the singing and like how Gordon's just there like pissing himself laughing trying to eat lunch while she's like doing her best impersonation of Cher.
Do you remember like he goes to check in at the front desk and there's like some problem there?
Oh, the damage waiver. Like they.
Oh yeah, yes. Signed a release form that, you know.
Release form, which is so funny. Like, does she not know what a hotel is? It doesn't seem like it. Like that is yeah, isn't that that's what you sign up for when you kind of sign up, when you pay for it anyway? Like,
yeah, it's like a social agreement, basically.
Yeah. So,
but why do you need it in writing?
That was really funny.
Yeah, and then like, isn't her like boyfriend the general manager or like something like that? It's like some guy she had been dating, and I don't know.
I think it's her ex, and then he was like undermining her, and so because
don't they try to fire him or something? Or...
No, she fires him on the show. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but like, clearly all of the problems were caused by her. It wasn't him. Like, he was just trying to, you know, make things work as best he could. But, you know, they had to.
Yeah.
they have to do the hero's journey with these people who are clearly like delusional. So they have to go through these stages where they do certain things within the story of the show that really don't make sense, because the show, and this is what is another thing that's great about the show, is that kind of discontinuity between this person is the hero of the show, like they've got their goal that they need to achieve, but also they're just like really deluded, self-involved, or just generally clueless people.
Yeah, I mean, there are times he walks away from a hotel that he's just kind of like, yeah, I really don't know about this one. Like, I don't think they've learned their lesson. So obviously some of the producers and the editing have to almost manipulate in a way to form these like more clear, understandable like archetypes for the general audience, because it's like, this is, kind of reality TV. So it's like, I'm just thinking about the type of person that would be watching this. This is something, kind of could be background noise, whatever. But like, there's got to be some conflict, some drama, but it's got to be like understood, because as you could see, and we'll get to in the third season, things just get way darker when you just kind of really expose everyone. But in these like earlier seasons, it's they're trying to have a little more, hero's journey. But it's also like honking hero's journey, because it's like these people are all clowns. So it's sort of, it gives it like this dark descent into human failings and depravity and stuff. No, absolutely. The second season starts out with a bang with like the Cher impersonator. Oh, the other thing about that episode too is he redoes it and everything, and puts all her ugly old furniture and stuff in storage, and then she like is getting cold feet and she's like, oh, I don't know about this, and then he's like, I'll take it all away if you don't, and threatens her and stuff. And that's a really funny moment too. Doesn't she go to the dumpster to try to like recover her? She tries he like throws out all of her stuff to do a makeover, and then she's like running to the dumpster. I mean, if I was, if it was my stuff, I'd kind of be like, hey, I want that. But yeah. But so it starts off with that. So were there any others from season 2 that you really liked as well? Season 2, I remember the Connecticut episode of the Curtis house. I just remember that. Yeah. Is that the haunted one? Or is that... I don't know. It was just like the oldest inn in America or whatever. Oh, okay. Or maybe it was, or Connecticut's oldest inn. I just remember that one because my parents have been there. There was nothing like particularly that was stand out from that. I think it was mostly just kind of like interpersonal family drama between like a brother and a sister. Who like had a falling out, and it was a very like kitchen centric episode, I noticed. But they kind of like, I love on like the Hotel Hell, like Gordon Ramsay shows where they have to like throw in the like sob story part about someone who's dying and an old grandma, and in this case it's like grandma, and they've had a falling out and they're all trying to reconnect. But yeah, that's what about you? What's your standout from season 2? Probably the first episode, because it's just so funny, and like it's really pathetic to admit, but like sometimes I just go on YouTube that scene. Just watch that. Yeah, because there's something about like, I don't know, there's something I empathize with her, but I also like find it just really hilarious. But also one of the that's another thing about that episode that I forgot to mention is that Gordon Ramsay brings some of his own sob story into that episode, because he sits her down and is like, look, because his dad was like a musician and would always take them around, the UK, trying to chase gigs, trying to make it happen, right? As like a rock star or whatever. And it never did happen. And he was doing this while he had kids. And like,
Gordon had this like heart to heart with her, like describing this, like, that delusion, like it's not going to happen, so,
Oh, wow.
Eva, so stop with being distracted by that and start being a hotel owner sort of thing, discussion.
Yeah. Did Gordon mention then when he like that his dad was like a drug addict? Was it that episode?
I don't know if he mentioned the drugs in that episode, but he mentioned that the whole music career thing, like it wasn't going to happen for him, but he kept going on long after it was clear that it wasn't, and that's what he sort of told her, which is kind of brutal in a way, but also like it actually was very honest of him, and like you could tell that he wasn't performing for the cameras, because that was sort of like something that happened in his real life.
Oh yeah. I'm just reviewing. I do remember a very sort of strange episode was the last one of season 2, where it was like the two sisters. I think they were like Thai or something.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
And
the Calumet Inn, was that what it was?
It says Murphy's Hotel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and like the mother was like living in the hotel and like in a window, or maybe there is a windowed room, but this one I just remember about like there were just like two college girls who, like, I don't know, came into some money from like their parents and was like, oh, you should run this hotel. And at the end of it, this one sister's like, I want to go to Chicago. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. She just wants to go out and like have sex and get drunk, basically, instead of like being, in the middle of bumblefuck, having to manage all this nonsense. They're in Sacramento, yeah. Oh, maybe it's not Chicago. Maybe it's LA, but I don't know.
There is one, I think it's in season 2. I was trying to like find it, but I couldn't find it in time. But there is one which is really like, it's just more a moment that I was like shocking and disturbing. Was the they had a hotel and underground was like the wine cellar and swingers grotto.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I can't remember which episode that is, but that was like a shocking moment. Like he goes down and he's in the wine cellar, like examining all this expensive wine that they're actually not using for the restaurant. It's actually just for guests for their like debauched swingers party. And then he like finds this other door, which is like, it's so creepy and cramped and like claustrophobic. And he kind of swings this like creaky door open. And then it's like this like dungeon like room with like a mineral spa.
No, it's the strangest thing.
It's so fucked. And these were not like, it's always that, do you remember that song from a few years ago? This guy was doing a parody song where it was like, it's always the people you don't want to be polyamorous who are polyamorous. Like it was that. It was very that. I remember the owners not looking the best. So yeah, it was that. I can't remember which episode that is though. I really want to find it though, so I can like splice it in or something.
Yeah, I'll keep my eye out for it.
Yeah. So any other highlights from season 2 before we get on to the fucking dark descent of season 3?
No, let's just hop into season 3.
All right. So season 3 starts so like, it's so disturbing and kind of so, because it starts with grief, basically. The first episode is these owners who own like, it's like an angler's, I think it's called Angler's Lodge, actually.
Yeah.
So it's like a fishing place in Idaho. And their 10-year-old son has just recently died. And so they've lost the will to live but definitely their kind of passion to run the hotel. And there's just this like really muted element to it. Like, and even elements from the show from before, like experiencing the food, not liking it, seeing things not up to par. You can see that he's pulling his punches with them because it's such a fucking sad story.
Yeah.
And it gives it this like, I don't know, forlorn elegiac kind of tone that like just starts off the season in a kind of really depressing mode.
Also, what's really notable is like the first two seasons have these like intro cards similar to like Gordon Ramsay, where it has this like peak, it's almost like mid 2000s looking like
with the Skyhawks song Hotel Hell. Skyhawks is a classic Aussie rock band.
Oh, no way. That's awesome. Yeah. It has like the intro. Yeah, it has that like rock intro with these kind of like zany animated slash live actioned graphics that look very like 2008 to me. And then season 3 is like, that's gone. There's barely a theme song. There's all this strange text that appears on screen, like outlining the narration, and the physical quality. It's like it looks like it's in super high definition too. That's what I noticed, and the tone totally changes.
Well, the title screen is like they'll give the cold open, and then it'll just be like a quick flash of Hotel Hell and kind of like Gordon looking off into the distance.
He looks so sad.
Yeah, and like he looks so depressed, and like it's at night too. Like, and the photo seems to have been taken at night or maybe indoors or something, but it looks like his craggy face has been caressed by moonlight or something like that. So it just casts a whole pall over the entire show that you're like, what the hell is happening here?
Well, I mean, I could see some of this probably being due to like the show not having a lot of success. I mean, maybe it was a desperate last attempt. It's like, well, the first two seasons sort of on the same wavelength as like Kitchen Nightmares to a degree. So they're like, oh, let's try to switch up the tone. Maybe this will do well with audiences, but it's honestly like, it's just some of the most depressing television around. Oh my God.
It's kind of like, you mentioned, Picture of Dorian Gray before. It's kind of like the trajectory of Oscar Wilde's work. It all starts out light and happy and witty and whatever. And then it ends with like De Profundis and like descent into like darkness and sadness.
Yeah.
But there is one exception to this this season, the tone of this season, and that is the two-parter, The Town's Inn, because I find this episode is the most hilarious episode on this show, I think, anyway. With the so this is a hotel in West Virginia, and it's run by this like kooky old lady who looks like a witch. And
no, literally, yeah.
Literally, she's like wearing, and she's getting around in like a black pinafore or something like that, whatever that thing is called. Like she looks like a Mennonite or something like that. But like she runs this inn, and she sleeps at the inn too in her office, and she's like not a young woman either, so it's like pretty depressing at the start. But the way that this is edited and like they filmed her as well is so fucking shady, because they show lots of kind of slow-mo, when they are introducing a character and they show them doing something, like, so she's sweeping or something like that, and they're filming her and it's in slow-mo, and she's like giving these little, she widens her eyes and smiles at the camera, but they do that in slow motion, so it makes her look even more crazy.
No,
like she's ready to cast a spell on you. And she is literally using one of those like brooms. Like it looks like a witch's broom.
Yeah, and she's like obsessed with like wicker baskets too, and collecting wicker baskets. But no, I think you're right though, is that like she certainly looks like a crazy lady.
Mm-hmm.
And in the whole episode, she's in complete, like she's so stubborn and in complete denial of like, there's some people like, people have like a different level of tolerance when it comes to like cleanliness and dirtiness. Like, you know, some people do things and they're just like, no, yeah, that's fine. Like they just like wiped their ass and then started eating their food. And, like, no, but and they always have these like qualifiers and justifications like, no, that actually touched like the back of my hand and I'm eating this with the front of my hand or something like that. That sort of was the tone of like, oh yeah, I bought this rotisserie chicken 6 months ago and I put it in the freezer, but you know, it was in the freezer and we just microwave it and serve it to the customers. She's pretty crazy, but yes, at the same time, when you hear her speak candidly, she actually is very reticent and like there mentally, even though most of the time it seems like she is like a dementia patient.
And also has an answer for him too. Like whenever he's like,
oh
what is this? She's like, oh, I do that because of this. And so she's got a whole like logic mapped out for everything that she does. And the funniest part of it, like, well, not the funniest, but one of the funny parts in the first episode is when he comes in to his room and he tries to like put his clothes away, but it's got a padlock on it. And she's like, well, that's where my clothes go.
Yeah. Like yeah.
They have a whole exchange about that. That's really funny. And that goes on for like most of the episode. He's just like, I want to put my fucking clothes away. And she's like, well, you paid for all this, not the actual cupboard. And like,
no, it's like scary logic. I think that's that's the crazy part about it. It's not just that she's doing these things, because that would have been a simple fix if she's like, I know this is wrong and I shouldn't be doing it, but you know, we're not making a lot of money and like, I'm just trying to save money, XYZ. It's like, no, this is all fine. She's like, yeah, this is all completely normal. And then like, if this was me, I mean, God bless Gordon Ramsay, like I would just give up. I would just be like, I can't even associate with somebody like this who believes something like that, you know?
And then there's the food.
Oh my God.
It's pretty bad. Like
they're boiling hamburgers.
Boiling hamburger. And I love the way when he does that, like just the way he says it is so hilarious. You're boiling a burger.
No, it's deranged.
And the rotisserie chicken too. They freeze the rotisserie chicken and then just like microwave that up. So it's all like, oh, that sounds so gross to me. Could you imagine?
It's horrendous. I mean, especially that, you know, these are like unknowing. Sorry, I'm far from the mic. These are like unknowing patrons, you know, like when you go into a restaurant, there's like a certain level of standard that you think people are going to meet. And I mean, certainly through watching like Kitchen Nightmares or Hotel Hell, like it's maybe wildly distrustful of like the standards in these sort of establishments is the bar is just so low, like, and all these people are just so jaded, like they don't even care.
Yeah, this is the best example of like when the kitchen staff like play the victim, because we
gotta talk about this guy. Because
there's so much to talk about in this two-parter, but like let's start with that. But
I forgot his name. He's like the black chef.
Yeah,
and it's hard to even. It's hard
like
to even call him,
or something like that.
You can't even call them chefs because all of their food is microwaved. It's frozen and then microwaved. But yeah, he like seems kind of retarded. He's like, his voice, he sounds a little mentally handicapped. Which kind of, you know, makes you feel bad for him. And it just makes you think like this is the like the home for like misfits of like you have the crazy it's like the crazy witch and like they had to give a job to the special needs guy. And I'm laughing, but it's really horrible. And anyway, he gets you know, Gordon is annihilating them for the poor. You know, the kitchen is completely disorganized. The food,
the oven's disgusting. Like,
food safety violations. And obviously, you know, he had already been coming down on the owner, who's, you know, batshit insane. And then he's trying to speak to the chef of the operation. And he's like, you know, what's going on? This is completely unacceptable. And the guy's like, yeah, I know. And I've been trying to say stuff this whole time. And then, you know, then the owner of the place is like, you haven't said anything.
Yeah, and she's I leave the kitchen to you. You know?
And then he you can halfway through, he really amps up the acting. Like you can tell he's visibly trying to act angry. He's like, I'm at my limit, man. I can't do this anymore. It's like, no, you're the one who was complicit in this whole thing. He's
Exactly.
like, I've been a chef for 20 years. I'm like, if you're a chef for 20 years, you got to step up and make a change, whether she wants it or not. And she seemed pretty deferential to him.
And also that whole performance as well makes me think that he's not actually that special needs, because you know, he's a theory of mind is developed enough to, you know, that he knew that he had to play the victim in that situation.
Yeah. Well, maybe he's not special needs. He just got a funny voice.
Yeah, maybe he's a bit Forrest Gump, but not like
exactly. I think that's actually more accurate. I apologize to him. I didn't mean to be offensive.
But yeah, he makes a whole performance, kicks up a stink about how he's tried to tell her and blah blah blah, and she's like, "No, you haven't."
And he starts throwing pots and pans around the kitchen, and he's like, "Man!"
The other thing about the food that's really fucked up as well is how they have the freezers out the side in the alleyway, in the wild, in the weather.
Yeah, no, the kitchen is indoor outdoor. It's they have this right outside the kitchen door on the patio. They have this whole rack that has chips and stuff on it, apparently. And then around the corner in an alleyway, they have a freezer. And then next to the freezer is the dumpster where the rats live.
Yeah, it's sanitary. So good. And this isn't this is only not even half of it. There's so much more good stuff in this episode.
I'm looking now. They have 4 microwaves. They're gonna blow up the place.
Yeah, 4 microwaves. It's all microwaved. Yeah, I think Gordon's food is particularly disgusting when he orders it.
I mean, I really admire Gordon. Kitchen Nightmares, this show, he just he will taste whatever the food is. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know how he does that. I would just barf instantly.
Okay, and so we talked about the kitchen, but while Gordon is eating, he meets another character that's involved with this place, and her name is Sarah. And
friend,
she is this annoying gadfly friend of the owner, who doesn't have an official position. She doesn't get paid. She just hangs around the hotel and quote unquote helps. And her helping involves painting over holes in the wall with pretty flower patterns, and just generally kind of being a nuisance and talking to guests and stuff like that, even though she has no kind of, you know, official affiliation with the hotel. And she then gives Gordon one of her business cards. And then
it's the most ill graphic design thing I ever seen. Yeah.
So bad. And her little slogan is hilarious too. And I think I still remember it. It's I run circles around nasty problems.
Wow. No, I mean, wow. That's
she certainly does, and if that means she doesn't solve them.
No, her whole thing is just, I guess, confirming her, you know, the innkeeper's bias, really, to keep fueling her that everything is okay, you know. And this woman, Gordon's pointing out that you know, the food is horrible to a customer, and the woman's laughing. She thinks, I think she just has nothing better to do and is in retirement and just wants to stir up trouble. And you know, because because this inn is like basically owned by the innkeeper's son, who's financing this whole thing. And this whole project is that so she has like something to do. Basically, she's an old woman who doesn't have, can't really work anymore. So her son's like, "Oh, let's buy you a hotel so you have something to do." It's totally deranged, and he comes in, and he's moderately likable, but it's also like he's like, "Yes, Gordon, you're right. We should prioritize profitability and preserving the sanity and health of my mother, and if that can't be the case, we're going to have to close this whole thing down." Meanwhile, he's basically just, abandoned her so she could just keep herself occupied. And she's been on a downward spiral. And then he comes back and he's like, "Oh, you know what?" He doesn't accept the responsibility like that. This is his fault. He's just kind of like, "Yes, let's do our best to turn this thing around." another like, let's redirect and play the victim real quick.
Yeah. So definitely, like, that whole element of as well is really fucked up, and like it does make you feel a bit of sympathy for this woman who is a little bit deranged. But yeah, so she's got the friend there, like, and the funniest thing about the friend too is like you will see like footage and the friend is always in the background. Just like she never leaves the place. You just see her, hovering. Like even if she's not the focus of the shot, she'll just be there. Like
background NPC. Yeah,
very much so. But let's get to like the most outrageous part of this two-parter. The diarrhea.
Oh my God, this is such a funny scene because they go into. Basically, it seems like the only room in this hotel.
Pretty much. I think this hotel only has like 4 rooms. I think there's like 2 downstairs and 2 upstairs or something like that.
Yeah, the son said this is supposed to be grandma's house that she rents out or something. Yeah, whatever that means. Again, it's not like a multifamily home, I guess. It's supposed to be a hotel.
It's very picturesque too. It's a very pretty town. But anyway, yeah. Yeah,
Gordon said I've really taken and fallen in love with this town or whatever. West Virginia, no offense to West Virginia, is a very strange place to me. It's just it breeds some of the strangest people I've ever met. But aside that fact, they go into what seems like the only room in the hotel where she, Gordon is supposed to be sleeping, but also she has a dresser that has her entire wardrobe in it that has a padlock on it. And Gordon pulls out this like sanitation test.
Yeah,
where they take,
he always
where they
does
take,
that.
Yeah, he takes out like this, it takes a swab of like the DNA, or not DNA, but like, the bacteria in the room, and it's supposed to measure it. And the funniest part about this scene is that he pulls up the innkeeper, her friend, this older female employee, and then like, there's also a staffed 17-year-old boy.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny because I could imagine being 17, right? And, to a degree, you're, that like, this isn't your problem, but you also, there's like a level of like, well, this is what I'm doing right now, so I'm just kind of in the thick of it. Yeah. I'm just thinking about if I was in this place at that age, you're just indulging everything that's happening because you have no power. You're just some kid. But yeah, basically he swabs the room and then he tells them, this has a scale of the level of sanitation that's acceptable for the room, and anything that's above 30. It's completely arbitrary number. Anything above 30 is bad, is in the danger zone. And, they're thinking, oh, the scale is 0 through 100. So he's like, guess how bad the number is. And, one goes 50, the other goes 60, someone says 70. And then he goes, it's at 800. And they all gasp. They're like, oh my God. But it's also like, well, they really have no reference. The only to this arbitrary number, the only reference is the number 30. But I just thought it was
also
hilarious.
like, I'm not a science-minded person or something, but I don't think this is quite up to standard because I'm like, what even is this machine? Because it's like,
No,
if you literally swab like shit or like something that's dirty and put it in, it like
it's gonna read highly.
It's gonna read like it's dirt or shit. Like, so I'm not sure. I don't get what it is in reference to. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because he's always picking up a general thing and putting it in. It's not like he's taking
an average of the room or something.
Yeah, like so. That's always like stood out to me about this show, but I don't care. It's part of the fantasy,
Yeah.
So. And then after that, like that revelation of the levels being at 800, one of the staff like mentioned
she totally outs her boss.
She totally outs her boss by like, oh, she had a diarrhea incident. And like, you're watching this and like, that's a bit embarrassing. But then like, you're like, wait a minute. And then they elaborate more. And then it's like, oh, she shat on the floor.
No, when I heard that, I was just baffled because there's been plenty of times where I've gone into public restrooms and I've always thought, how does it end up on the ground is the question. Same thing for this. Maybe she was just like literally couldn't hold it and had explosive diarrhea and end up on the ground. But for God's sakes, like I thought people like, if I have diarrhea, I sit on the toilet and it all ends up in one place. Oh God.
But then just the this woman like as well just took it. She just took it like she wasn't like embarrassed or anything.
No, she had no shame either.
Oh yeah, that happened. I had a bit of diarrhea and blah 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 blah. And it's just like, this is like,
you kind of felt bad for her in that instance.
Yeah. And this was like on top of everything else. It just becomes like, this was the most farcical episode, I think, of the entire show because like it's just one thing after another in a way that it piles on top of each other in a way that it doesn't in the other episodes, and it's just like so funny because of and then in the second part he gets her a makeover as well as the hotel. And basically all it is, you can tell that it's not actually a drastic thing with her clothes, but you can tell that she would have been stubborn about like what they were trying to put her in. And so she just ended up with a skirt and a cardigan, I think. And basically they just straightened her hair. That's all they did.
No, that's literally, I think, because Gordon at one point says, Jesus Christ. And she goes, watch your language. I think she's like some sort of
Christian,
devout, evangelical sort of Christian. Yeah. She said she had never gotten her nails done in her entire life, or, never had gone for a, hair day or to a salon or anything.
Yeah. And you can tell that like as well, it's really funny too, how they have to act like she looks like so different when she walks up, like all the staff are lined up out front of the hotel and they're like, oh my God. And it's just like, she looks the same. Her hair's just been straightened. She's not wearing any makeup.
Yeah. They're like, oh my God, you look so good. Even the chef guy is like, you look great or whatever. He probably has a crush on her now or whatever.
Yes. This one was the one actually as well. The room that they renovated actually didn't look too, grey neoliberal. It kind of, I thought it fit with the vibe of the place a little bit more. Like it wasn't too.
Yeah, it had these like dark blue walls and it definitely felt I'm looking at it now. I actually kind of like how it looked before. It's a shame that it wasn't clean.
It did look nice.
You know why? Clean. You know what? A big thing is that you can't find quilts like real, kind of real antique quilts anymore. So like, I mean, bed linens, of course, like the primary concern is like cleanliness, but
you don't want a mosaic of semen.
Yeah. I'm just looking at this design now because obviously a lot of this is just sort of staging, right? it's not like finalized, but they're like, oh, we have like we hired some stagers who have like props that they basically bring in. Like nothing is hammered on the wall. The wall is just one solid color. I mean, the bed frame is like a gray quilted sort of fabric. Look, I mean, anything's an upgrade when you're literally you're literally in a room with diarrhea in it, but it's not, it doesn't necessarily delight the senses either, in my opinion.
Another highlight in this episode, like one of the other ones that is not quite so dour, is the one in Florida, the beachside one, which it's just funny because the guy is such a bumbling idiot. Like, he's the one who's always in those long shorts, those long cargo shorts.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
And I love that, like, Gordon reads him towards the end and is like, "You're an owner, put on some pants."
His whole transformation at the end of that show is that the guy puts on a pair of pants.
Yeah, but like, that's an episode where he leaves it too, because the guy didn't take his advice. He was like, "Oh, fuck this, I'm leaving."
Oh yeah,
because he's so fucking dumb.
But he had like him and his friends running the place, right? And the guys were just like taking advantage of him.
Yeah. And they had that really disgusting cold room scene where they got all the old seafood and shit out of the buckets.
No, that's gotta smell horrendous. Yeah.
But yeah, any other highlights for season 3 for you? They're all pretty depressing.
Yeah, this one, it just had such a like. I mean, what we were talking about in the 2-parter definitely is funny, but I mean, that first episode really like is a tone shift. Also, I think from this season there was the family in like in Washington, and they had like the stereotypical like like bearded guy from the Northwest, like bearded white guy. He has like white hair and an Asian wife, and it was just so typical, like kind of Seattle, Washington sort of thing, and they were just totally. I mean, all these owners are just stubborn to a degree and acted up. And this was another, though. It was like, I guess they would like in this season really like pulling back the curtain on like people's like personal drama that had
and failings too. Like, it was really kind of brutal with the way that it like just highlighted all these people's failings.
Yeah, this one was like he had a falling out with his like son or something, and and it had like, but it somehow translates to like their attitude at large. I don't know, but I think we definitely encompass the whole thing with the 2-parter.
Definitely. It does end with like one that's sort of at the Mohican Castle, that one, so it does end with a wedding, because like part of the makeover process is that they're going to hold a wedding there. So I guess that's a kind of happy ending to the season, but it does sort of like feel there's a finality to it, that like this show is never coming back again. And that's probably why I kind of love it, and I just keep going back to it. But it is interesting that a lot of my favorite episodes, other than that 2-parter, are from the first 2 seasons, because I like that. I like the more peppy energy of the first 2 seasons. Like, the 3rd season is just so bizarrely dour. I just don't get it. Maybe they just knew they were getting cancelled or something, so they kind of decided to take that shift in tone.
Yeah, I remember also like the music sort of changing and like the visuals of it too. Like things looked, I think the like quality upgrade was just like way too hyper realistic looking. And it just like, it just pierced. Also, I'm looking now, it's like all of these places have like such emptiness to them. Like it just feels like, oh wow, maybe there's the staff and the owner, but it feels like lifeless and like uninhabited. And, I'm thinking about that first episode too. I don't even remember seeing any customers. I just remember them. They're like on this like resort hotel by the lake, and it's just like they're in the middle of nowhere, and they're grieving over the dead 10-year-old. It's harrowing.
Yeah, that was rough. But yeah, it's worth watching. It's all actually available on YouTube for free. If you listen to this and you want to find it and you can't, I'll send you the link. But yeah, it's well worth seeing, I think, because it's like the apotheosis of like the renovation makeover show, I think so, mixed with like the kitchen nightmares kind of genre, I guess. Any final thoughts on Hotel Hell or 1408, Matthew?
No, let's put it to rest.
Let's finally put it to rest. And is there, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Mattio Patio, MATTIOPATTIO. I host the Saltbox podcast, which isn't regularly, there's not regular programming schedule, but I am still on the project. It's really like I try to put a lot of love into it.
And you can feel that. I get a giddy little thrill when it comes up in my descriptions. I'm like, oh, he's done another one.
once in a while. So that too, and if you want to keep up, sometimes on with my images, I'll post stuff on Instagram at Mattio Patio as well.
Beautiful. Thanks for joining me today, Matthew, Matteo, or however whatever you want to be referred to.
Thank you, Matteo.
Matthew.
It was
Matthew,
a lot.
Matteo.
It was a lot of fun. I'm glad we got this on the record.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Awesome.
All righty. Let's get lit.
Thursday comes around, you know I'm staying home. Yes, I've learned my lesson, there's no way I'm gonna roam from my room above the laundromat on the dirty side of town, where the fridge is always full and the beer's not watered down, where they never lock their cars or punch each other's heads, and spike your drinks with Mandy's to try to sell you reds, with Clapton, Beck and Jimmy are jamming in the sun, and the girls are very friendly. I think I'll get me